Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fearless Fridays. This is episode 7 or installment 7 of Fearless Fridays. And as always, I thank you for joining me, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or IGTV, wherever you're watching. Thank you so much for watching and for joining me and tuning in again. This week, I want to talk about the very specific fear that comes with or from telling your own story and the vulnerability that comes from telling your own story. I think a lot of us are afraid or have experienced fear when it comes to telling our own story because of the vulnerability of it all, because we feel like maybe someone's going to judge us, someone's going to take whatever we've done or whatever we've experienced and hold it over our head. But I want to flip that. And I want to talk to you and tell you about the power that comes with telling your own story and the importance of overcoming that fear. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but I self-published a book last year. It's called The Heart Works, a collection, and I promise this is not a commercial for my book. But this is something that I experienced very acutely when I was working on editing, writing, editing, and publishing my book. My book is based on personal experience. It's not a novel. It's a collection of journal entries and short stories and essays, but they're all very personal and they all come from a very personal place in a very personal space. And as I was writing the book and going through and editing the book and compiling, all of the pieces that would go into the book, there were moments where I would read through a certain entry, a certain journal entry, or a certain story that I'd written, or a certain essay that I'd written, and I'd feel this feeling of fear, of anxiety, almost a feeling of pause, like something was holding me back. And I realized that what I was experiencing was the fear of the vulnerability that comes with telling your own story or expressing yourself and having your voice heard in the way you express yourself or the way you speak. And I realized that I was having this fear, and I thought, what if somebody reads this and they start assuming things? Or what if someone reads this and they know what I'm talking about? Or what if someone reads this and they just know that I have put myself out there in this way, that I have made myself vulnerable to people reading about my personal feelings and my personal emotions? What am I going to do? What am I going to do with that? What am I going to do with the judgment that may come from that? And I really felt a sense of fear, and that was something that I had to overcome in order to finally publish the book and put the book out there. But what I realized that by allowing my voice to be heard, by writing out my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions and sharing those things in my own words and in my own way, what I realized was that I was owning my story. I was owning my experience. I was owning my emotions. I was owning my vulnerability. And when you own your own story, when you take control of your own narrative, you're in the position of power because no one can ever hold it over your head. No one can ever judge you for something that you have been open about. No one can ever tease you. No one can ever hold it over your head. No one can ever say, I have a bit of information about you that no one else has, and maybe I'll share it and maybe I won't. No one can ever hold you or have control over you in that way if you are the one who takes control of the story, if you are the one who takes control of your own narrative. And I think this is so, so important because I think there's so much healing that comes when we are vulnerable enough to share our stories or to share our testimonies, if that's what you want to call it. When we're vulnerable enough and confident enough and powerful enough to share that and to be vulnerable in that way, we own it. I own it. I own my story. You own it. You own your story. Whether it's something that happened to you or something that you did to someone else, something that you don't want to share, something that's going on in your life, you own it. Now, of course, you have to share with discernment. I'm not saying you go out in the streets and you tell all your business to anybody who will listen and even people who won't listen. That's not what I'm saying. You have to be careful and you have to be discerning about who you're going to share your story with. But what I am saying is that You cannot allow this fear of the vulnerability of sharing your story be the thing that controls you. You can't allow this thing to be the thing that controls you, because it'll hold you back. If you're constantly keeping secrets about yourself, if you're constantly hoping and praying that this person doesn't find out about this and that person doesn't find out about that, if you're constantly living on pins and needles hoping that people don't find out certain bits of information about you, then you're constantly living under a cover. You're constantly living being controlled by that fear. And the image that comes to mind when I talk about this is the image of the puppet master. You've seen the old image of the puppet master who has the wood and the strings, and the puppet is dangling, and the puppet master is controlling the movements of the puppet by pulling a string or letting another string go. That's what it is. That's what it is. Someone else has control over your story, or that fear is the puppet master. Don't allow fear to be the puppet master over your life. You have to learn. You have to learn how to be comfortable in vulnerability. And being comfortable in the vulnerability of telling your own story, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And honestly, maybe you won't ever be comfortable in it, but at least you'll have control over it. At least you know it's your story. It's mine to share. It's mine to tell. It's mine to keep. And it's mine to own. And as soon as you own whatever it is, whether, again, like I said, whether it's something you did to someone else or something that someone did to you, something that happened to you, when you own that, you have the power, you have the control. So that's really all I want to share for today. Don't be afraid to own the vulnerability. Don't be afraid to share your story. You never know who you're going to bless. You never know who you're going to help. You never know how you're going to free yourself when you do that for yourself. Okay? So like I always say, fear is stupid. So get out in the world and live, love, go, do, be, and tell your story. Talk to you next week. Bye.